It is just going to be the same first pick for WE.
Yeah, so changing out, taking away the Kai'Sa, which has been primarily Jiumeng's best champion this split, so it is something I understand. It also fits really well with those compositions that want to dive the backline. You see the Hecarim go in, it sets up so well to Kai'Sa just be able to follow it up. And there we go, we're running it back.
Yeah, it's the exact same draft. And I also want to throw out to some of our chat who are going to be darting between two streams, I know. Just remember at the start of this series, we talked about Jinx being a big pick for both these AD carries. Both AD carries have a 100% win rate on it with something like 6-7 games here for Huanfeng, or at least a huge KDA now to add to it. So another big pick here for the AD carry, as they're just going to take away more from the bottom lane of WE with those bans.
I mean, it's still just following the same script as last game, the All-Star ban coming out. Now it is a bit different because Suning can't ban out the Kai'Sa this time around because it's already banned, and WE taking away the Zilean. So it'll be interesting to see where Suning index into with that off the board. I would expect and hope WE still take away the Azir rather than the Twisted Fate. I feel like that peel and that disengage can be a lot more impactful than, you know, maybe the early game pick potential that TF would provide to this composition.
Very true. Angel, second time on the Zilean as well. And something that needs to be taken away. Angel getting more priority as we go on here in playoffs. I'm sure that something will say. The Aphelios being hovered as a ban again. There's the Twisted Fate that's going to be taken away anyway. So double mid lane ban. And let's see if Suning just go back to mid lane safety again for Angel. Or now that that's taken away, if they look for an SofM pick.
I feel like you just take the Azir here. They didn't opt into banning that. They still are too afraid of the threat that Twisted Fate provides on the map early, but actually, this was a hover we saw in game one. It fulfills that same role of just kind of enabling your hyper carry AD to do what she does best, fine in the laning phase, and yeah, I really like the adaptation from Suning, and it's going to be the first Seraphine mid we do see in playoffs, and Angel's second time picking up the champion.
Yeah, it was seen a couple of times within the regular season. Of course, you already mentioned how it facilitates, but, you know, a little bit more so, right? Like, the Sona 2.0 here in the mid lane for Angel. And going up against the Orianna, we'll have to see how Shanks can punish it. But Lyric on the side of WE, I don't want people to fall asleep, but it looks like the exact same draft. Thinking that, no, it wasn't the draft that was an issue. It was the selection that you talked about and execution at the end of the day.
I mean, right, like, no matter kind of where you end up on drafts, they were very close. They both had clear ways to win that game. WE definitely botched the execution. And I'm just going to say, I wouldn't be surprised to just see Suning run the Olaf again. You have all the sustain coming out in the mid lane, so going with something that has built-in sustain as well and enabling that even more just feels like a very clear place for Suning to go.
Yeah, don't get baited, guys. You're not going to see a Kiana in the jungle, even though SofM's full of surprises. Today, he keeps it pretty clean, and in game 2, as he smiles, he knows that you're not happy to see the Olaf, but we get the same exact comps, bar the Seraphine. Nothing changes up here, and for Suning, they're thinking, yep, okay, we'll just do it all again. We'll just use the Seraphine like we did with the Zilean.
I'll be honest, I even think it's slightly better in the composition than the Zilean was, because it provides, you know, far more zone control than the Zilean does. It enables the whole team. It has a bit of a better laning phase than the Zilean early on as well, right? So exactly, it does the same job slightly differently, but I'd say overall better than what he provided. Could just be a difference coming down to comfort for Angel, to where we know we already saw him on the Zilean before. Could just have a lot more confidence on that champion, but still, we ran through win conditions game 1. Going to be a lot of the same. I think a big thing to keep our eye on early is what's going to be the change in how we see top laners play and kind of how junglers path around that.
That's right, because jungle has been the matchup here, as you see on your screen. Jungle has been what has dictated a lot of the tempo plays, especially within the first game. But remember, you already mentioned Suning, scaling advantage coming through. So for WE, let's see how they pull this together. Let's see how the target selection goes into game number 2 at the very least.
I also want to highlight, once again, right, it's not a clear-cut scaling advantage coming out. I definitely don't think that's the case. It comes down to how these compositions play out. I think WE, some changes they need to make from last game, just get on the objective first, find those angles with Beishang and Breathe, and they'll have a good time.
See those angles, how WE can come back in the series going into game number 2. Suning absolutely demolished them in those 2 key fights, got them to game 1. Now up in the advantage here in the series. Remember, the winner of this goes to face on against top esports, who right now feel like they're in massive form. As the gyos come out, ladies and gentlemen, we can't hear them, but we assume the crowd is pumping out the volume here today. And as we see Suning fan out, nothing happens here in the early game. But the Seraphine graces us in the mid lane. Angel, once again on his mid lane champion, has taken the unsealed spellbook.
You know, here's a question for you. Since, again, me and you actually can't hear the gyos. Who gets louder gyos? A dynasty organization like WE or a world finalist like Suning? Or is it the same?
Here's the thing. WE normally in Xi'an, that's where their base is. So I think it's Suning. Also, they went to Worlds last year. They went to World Finals. And they weren't as expected in the World Finals. But, hey, I think their fan base has grown. And especially since they're in Shanghai. Because Suning doesn't actually have an arena. So I'd expect it to be Suning. I guess the chat at one point will tell us maybe a little bit later. People can DM us. But finally onto Summoner's Rift, sir. It's good to see it once again, even though it's pretty much the same drafts. You talked a little bit about the solo lanes here once again, as Breathe is trying to establish himself up against Bin.
And, you know, one thing to highlight that we didn't highlight last game is the fact that SofM is starting solo red. Does mean that Huanfeng and On will be able to hit that level 2 first, right? Jiumeng and Missing did go for that leash. I'd say both should be able to assume the pathing's coming out. They'll know very shortly, at least, because WE once again getting that ward onto the Raptor camp, and Suning know that Beishang is pathing up towards the top side.
Similar vision controls. Missing throws out a hook once again here in this bottom lane. Just peek your eyes over towards mid. You can see that Angel actually pushing out this lane up against Shanks. He's got the first shove at the very least, and a bit of a CS lead, until Shanks is able to pick up the wave at the turret.
And I mean, that's better for this matchup that we talked about. I think Seraphine has a lot more laning presence. I remember a lot of people made comparisons to Sona just with how her kit functions, but she kind of always seemed like a go-between for me between a Sona and a Nico, to where you have a lot of the strong trading patterns. You outrange, you have the CC, then you just have the sustain as well.
Very true, and remember the Encore as well, something that's very painful to deal with. I feel like is the biggest nuisance, better than Crescendo, is considering when you can use the range through your allies. And I think we're just going to get another slow game again, right? As Suning's pushing in the bottom lane. That's a good little dredge line onto On. He gets knocked down, but the Ferromancy Crashdown cannot be interrupted, so he'll escape once again.
Trade ends up being about even because Huanfeng also able to get some trades off onto Jiumeng on the back end of that. They're going to push the wave in, so they will be able to guarantee that bounce back. Both junglers, once again, just trading sides of the map with where they're going to get Scuttle Crabs. Bin this time around, though, does have a ward for himself in the top Tri-Brush. And we can also see Angel was able to get a ward down around Raptor Camp as well. So, going to be harder for Beishang to make these cheeky plays, but he's Ghost.
Yeah, because Bin pushes out. There's the flash immediately. About to go into the Mega Gnar. He's waiting for the flash. He gets knocked back anyway. The hop is there. One more bit of damage needed. He gets knocked back. Beishang has used his Ghost. And this time, Bin will survive the gank.
Really nice of him to hold that hop, you know, be able to guarantee that escape. Was able to hold onto his flash as well. Pops the Mega, so would be much harder for W to look to execute this. Even SofM pathing up this time around for his clear. They might be able to punish Breathe. Breathe has no flash.
That's right, he burned it in the engage, and now he's in the middle of the lane. Bin's chasing after him. The hop is going to zone him away, and Breathe is going to get tagged up here. First slice of the dice. Turret's going to hit once as well. There's the undertow. And does he want to give it over to his top laner? Yes, he does. Punished well with Suning's first blood.
So we're already seeing some adaptation coming from game one, just Bin being more conscious of the potential early ganks coming out from Beishang, holding onto that E in lane. And then SofM, I mean, he did path topside, so that's where his camps are respawning regardless, but still making his way up around that 4-minute, 15-second mark to punish the flash burned by Breathe in that exchange. And ooh, I really like this hover from Angel. Just reading well of what W are going to do. They make a play on top side. They know that Beishang will look to punish on the bottom half of the map. He had already pushed in the wave and prevented that from happening.
And means that early game means that for WE, already down a significant amount. About 1,000 gold brewing here at 5 minutes with first blood going over to the Gnar. And I guess this is the difference, right? In game one, it went over to Beishang, went to the jungler. The lane for Bin was already going to be good here on the Gnar, and it does feel like Bree's going to be in a bit of trouble. Let's see what Suning do to try and abuse the matchup further.
And that's the thing of where I feel like the game one came down to execution for WE, because WE were able to get the advantage. WE, missing, goes back for the hook.
Does it go further? There's the explosive charge now popped down. SofM's walking down, but It is just going to simply be to put pressure onto Jiumeng and missing as he takes the undertow. Oh my god.
Oh, and SofM just wraps
yeah,
around.
Jiumeng and missing don't respect it. A track and repel. Rocket jump away. The re-engage burnt. As there's the flash as well onto SofM. He's just hit 6 with the Ragnarok. That heal up will also come off, leveling up too. And SofM playing cheeky to Jiumeng and missing surprise.
And he's still going. The thing was, WE still had summoner spells when he went for that wraparound, so there was no world where they would be able to find a kill. At best, they would have been able to get a summoner, but with the punish just coming through, I like that WE this time around are taking advantage of this. We see that Beishang is on the dragon, and look at your mini-map. Breathe was even hovering towards the bottom half of the map. If any potential action would have broke out around mid lane, and just kind of guaranteeing, hey, I pushed in my wave, I'm controlling vision topside by getting the Scuttle Crab, and he's looking to just punish Suning to full effect.
No flash, but the teleport advantage if anything goes wrong as well. Angel, how far does he push with the wave here? Backs away, pays respect that the Renekton is missing, and Breathe will be able to make a safe back here with the plated steel caps. And actually gets to walk to lane as well, as the wave is currently at a pretty good point for Bin.
Yeah, Bin just kind of holding the wave there after Breathe got in the push. He shouldn't be able to freeze it. We didn't actually see whether it was crashed in a tower or not, but for the fact that Breathe spent so much time in river and around Raptors, you can assume he pushed it in. So Bin probably building up a massive wave right now that Breathe is going to be able to catch. Pays the respect, gets a control ward down as well, making sure, hey, no shenanigans are going to come out. They also have the Scuttle Crab, so no dive should be coming out around topside at any point now. Feels like the next thing we're looking at will be that Rift Herald spawning in the next 30 seconds, where WE have the push and bot. They're going to get the bounce back topside. They should be the team who I would expect to look for that play. Scuttle
priority there as well, and we'll see. Shanks has actually gone back, picked up the tier earlier, but now has the Sork shoes in hand as well, so let's see how WE prepare for this. 15 seconds till it comes up. Jiumeng staying in lane, and this is something we've talked a lot about in the LPL, where bottom lanes will often move, set themselves up for a potential skirmish, and give priority over the objective. But you can see so far, it is only the support in missing who has made the move, while the bottom lane of Suning are still there.
I mean, that's all they need to do, right? Because you have a Tristana, you have the rocket jump, you have cleanse, you have flash. In the 1v2 lane, I think he's pretty safe and pretty well prepared to deal with the aggression that Huanfeng and On can bring. Okay. The only thing he'd have to be afraid of is any potential 3v1s coming out if SofM does look for that dive, is he's at least going to get vision in the jungle. And, ooh, if Missing had done that even 1 second later, I think that would have been rough. Doesn't have flash up.
Yeah, he would have been caught out, would have been dead. SofM going to spot him out with the ward there now at the very least, but they know where this jungler is, so the bottom side has to pay that respect. While Beishang this time around, game number 2, the Rift Herald number 1 will actually go over to him. So a decent start here for WE despite losing up in the top side. There's the ultimate burn to disengage as SofM comes in. No Ragnarok burn, but Jiumeng was expecting On to jump on him.
And the thing I really like about this last play we saw around Rift Herald, right, is it was a whole sequence of events that kind of set up and led to it being so easy the past 2 minutes of, you know, us highlighting the wave push in top, the hover around mid, the plays around bot side. So I like WE going step by step, going through the motions to secure their objectives this time around. They are at a bit of a gold deficit right now. We can see, looks like that's mostly going to be coming from the top lane with Bin just being ahead right now. But actually, Breed's going to pick all of this up in, you know, once he catches his wave. Looking to hold a freeze, though.
Yeah,
he's going to let those come in.
But Bin going to take the Krugs in the meanwhile. While you were talking about gold, I also want to pay attention and point our audience towards the mid lane as, you know, earlier on, we did see the push coming out from Angel, but Shanks has done quite well in this lane. He's about 110 CS at about the 10-minute mark. So far things looking good here for WE to really stem the early game that Suning felt like they were going to build up from the top side. And I was going to ask you about the Rift Herald, but Beishang maybe already has an answer for me.
No, they're playing heavily around their bottom side. They also have Prio in mid, so it would be very easy for Shanks to just lean and play around this lane as he's going to start doing now. I like that Beishang is protecting his control wards when he knows that Shanks is here and that their bottom lane can very easily follow up. But this play is still giving Suning a lot of time to respond. SofM's already making his way over, as well as Angel's been missing mid for quite a while. So WE know, hey, this took a bit too long. They didn't fall for the bait of looking for this engage around this ward, and WE do back off in the end.
Shows a better style of team, right? You're not going to try and double down on your losses, maybe like an IG would, and make the dive anyway. You pull back and you go back to your standard lanes. So it does feel like WE holding fast here in this game. Still down by about 700 gold, but at this point, I think it's important to talk about, as we get towards this next Dragon Lyric, and what you expect to see with the Herald still being held as a potential plus for WE's Beishang.
I think WE are still in a very good position for any early action that does break out. I think for Suning, we're looking towards when Seraphine does pick up the Moonstone Renewer, and then, you know, can start being a bit of annoyance in these team fights for WE to deal with. But Suning are looking to try to find a potential pick before the Dragon starts. They do get control of Vision Bot, but Beishang's coming off a base. They're going to be able to walk into River, and look at the minimap. Breathe is also making his way down already.
Doesn't want to TP, wants to walk straight on in. The mid wave going to be pushed here exquisitely fast. Shanks has the shockwave and is level 10 as he walks on down. SofM a little bit low, but that won't stop the Olaf, as Beishang going to be the one to start it off.
And I think this should just be WE's. Again, this was where they made some mistakes in game one, I felt, where they had a comp and they had the pressure early on to where they can be on the objective first. I feel like that gives them a lot more potential flank or engage angles to come out, for Suning in a lot more awkward positions than if you are the team running into them. And sure, they did lose some gold and some pressure out in top lane. Bin is getting a bit more of an advantage, but still, they're at least on their way to getting a very early soul if they're able to maintain what they've been doing.
It's going to be a more explosive soul. We have an Infernal gracing us on the Rift, and this time around, you're right, WE first 2 dragons of the game, while Bin was pushing up in that top side. I didn't get to look at how many plates. I believe it was 3, as I see on my mini-map, so it is a decent start here for Bin on the Gnar, who should be able to get the Mythic in this first back as well, and it does just feel like we have a much slower early game, as WE willing to trade the sides yet again.
And they will be able to guarantee this turret in the bot side, so they're at least going to open up a point of pressure. I don't think immediately this is really going to equal into any kind of like picks coming out from the side of WE. And a big thing to keep our eye on is the fact that since Bin has just been solo farming in top side, you mentioned he probably is able to pick up that Mythic on his back. He is going to start being able to win out in those side lanes, so at least this game, Bin will be more of a pressure point than last game, where Breathe picked up the early kill, so Bin wasn't able to punish him in that isolated laning phase.
As SofM and Breathe actually going to meet up in the meantime. Missing his move 2. There's no Herald up here, but Missing just starting to be proactive as the wave getting pushed in the top side. And Bin won't find the turret for now. Just a bit of a reminder, we saw first turret blood going over to W in the bottom lane. Hence the gold a lot closer now on the scoreboard, as everyone kind of backing off to getting the first items thanks to that extra gold injection. And Missing feeling very confident. Look at the deep vision that he's willing to go for with Breathe pretty far away in that top side.
I mean, still, they know that Bin went for his recall, so there shouldn't be any immediate fear unless SofM just walking through his jungle by himself. But as Missing, you can Q away. Tristana is not too far away. Breathe is able to follow up as well. You still have your flash. But WE might be able to get a pick on Angel. He does have flash and does have heal, but with Huanfeng walking up, no cheeky shenanigans are going to be attempted.
I guess we should wait till the next dragon, right? I mean, 2 minutes 45 till that comes through, and we do have the Moonstone Renewal for Angel. So new question for you, Lyric. If we have those items on the board, or at least towards the next Herald, do you feel like Suning feel confident in fighting in this stage, especially when you have Huanfeng who's picked up his Mythic as well?
I feel like for Suning, it's going to be about playing around the pressure that Bin is still able to generate, especially right now. Get him move first, which will allow for Suning to hit wave first and then get on the objective first. So a lot of firsts that we want to see come out for Suning to be able to get a fight that should be advantageous. Because if that sequence doesn't happen and you just have, you know, Shanks able to group, Jiumeng moving over to mid, they're spamming their abilities on the wave, they get on the objective again. Suning are then put in a more awkward position where we're coming more down to execution, where Suning are the team who have to walk into Orianna. Beishang will be able to find flank angles and get on top of the Jinx. You don't have a Zillion revive this time around, so the get out of jail free card isn't exactly the same. And
just look at the vision set down by WE, especially around this Herald that they've pretty much taken control of as SofM backs away. They knew this was going on. Suning let it go, and second Herald of the game over to WE. That's all the objectives, in fact. As Breathe and Missing just partnering up in this top lane, and this is WE making the proactive move first yet again. And
it was the whole map. We saw Shanks push in the wave bot. He was able to hover over, very fast towards mid. WE playing heavily around mid, but Suning bringing in the TPs. Yeah, they want to go for it.
He took a lot of turret shots here, Lyric, so Breathe could be in a bit of trouble. Dominus still there. Onslaught of Shadows to escape. The flashes burn as well. Ragnarok won't enable the turret dive. WE get away, but Suning force a lot of summoners out of that top lane engage as there's a depth charge. Huanfeng in a lot of trouble as well. Shanks has enough with the flash shockwave, but won't commit for it as Huanfeng will manage to slide away.
I mean, and that's why we talked about, Suning's team comp, running at WEs isn't anything guaranteed. They did force a lot of summoners because WE were so far overextended, but right, your only true engage is the Rell, and sure, I guess you can combo the Seraphine on top of that with the ult range being extended through allies as well. But Suning still coming out as the winner of that play, able to guarantee top turret, but WE going punch for punch in the mid lane.
That'll even up the gold yet again. If I'm just going to wait to see the health of the turret. Maybe not kill the turret, but add a bit of pressure as Bin has now teleported in as well. Look at the map movements. Look at where everyone is. Breathe on the bottom side as Herald charges on in, and it's around this next dragon. This will be Dragon Soul Point if WE can pick it up.
And we do have key items coming out for the side of Suning. Moonstone and New Reserve. Bin also being tankier than his counterpart.
A lot of damage coming from Shanks on the return onto SofM. Jiumeng backing away as well. River priority given over to Suning. You talked about first here. They were into the river first. They did walk in first. But now WE trying to re-ascertain control themselves, clearing away vision.
And a big thing is we don't have flash on Breathe, but Beishang does have Ghost and his ultimate is about to be up. So once again, all of our eggs are in the Beishang basket. I do like that we saw him hovering towards the bottom side of the dragon, so he's at least very aware of, again, he needs to be coming at an awkward angle, find his way onto Huanfeng, chain in Shanks' ultimate, and try to get that first down. I just don't think it's going to be that easy.
Look at where Bin is, though, for the time being, as Dragon gets started. Onslaught of Shadows still available for Beishang. Bin targeted out. He goes into the middle, though. Sent away is Jiumeng, but he's out to do no damage as Suning walked towards the rest of WE. It's over in an instant yet again, and Suning have just destroyed WE in Game 2.
And I think Suning are just have a very clear understanding of how they need to play out their composition. They're performing mechanically well. They're executing the team fights how they need to, but again, they realize how they need to play these out. They were playing around that choke point around their tower, once again trying to get some poke damage come out from over the wall. They forced their way into river, get on the objective, and again, Renekton has no flash. Missing shouldn't be able to find an angle where he's going to be able to get a hook off onto any meaningful target. And then we're just looking at Beishang. Channels up the E, but Bin is putting so much threat on that flank, and it gives room for On to go in. And look at Beishang now. It actually doesn't matter even had he gotten onto Huanfeng, because On and Bin are doing so much at zoning off from the side. And then they're just very easily able to follow up. Huanfeng has so much room to do damage. We saw the Seraphine ult come out as well.
And Missing just dies in lifetime.
Missing, yeah.
Yeah. That's not good. And I just want to point out as well, Shanks died before he could Shockwave in that fight. Did a lot of zoning, but Shockwave never come through, which feels like one of the key tools for WE. And yet again, we got to another fight around an objective where WE failed.
The problem is, right, he could have hit a Shockwave onto On and Bin, and, maybe that could have set up for Jiumeng to reposition and get off more autos and maybe change the fight a bit differently. But at the same time, you saw how much room was bought for Huanfeng, which feels like the massive thing in these fights is we see Missing just getting caught out going a bit too far forward for a ward. And a typical day in the office for Suning.
Yeah, and typical support, I'd say, so getting caught out for wards as he will set this up with a dredge line. Ragnarok burnt immediately. There's the attract and repel. On tries to help the jungler as WE committing for the engage here. Onslaught of Shadows means Beishang goes deep. There's that dredge line. Pretty lucky that didn't connect at the end of the day. WE back away after taking away SofM's summoner. And that for WE will be a small potential window to see what they can do.
Still, though, no objective up on the map, right? You don't have Dragon. I guess they could try to put some pressure through mid and then maybe hover towards topside and take that down, but still, that's just going to be a bit of standing gold. Suning are still far ahead in terms of gold and items, so not able to turn that into anything meaningful. Still, SofM no flashes. Ragnarok will be up by the time the next dragon is up, though. And there's a very interesting thing I want to talk about that we saw Huanfeng say before the game, where he said, hey, we got 2-0'd by WE in the regular season, but we had to fly to Xi'an. We had a travel day. And I think that's something a lot of fans and, even us as casters and people who watch LPL don't regularly realize is when we're getting back into these stadiums and you have to dedicate a full travel day towards, going to another arena and then another travel day towards going home, that definitely has a big impact on your prep, on your scrims, on your mentality. And it feels like we might be seeing that here for Suning, where they didn't have to do that this time around, and just such a clean lead against WE 2 games in a row.
And let's not forget,
at least clean punishment in the mid game.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not forget its home crowd advantage as well, especially for WE's arena, right? I think WE fans, and especially with their old arenas, 600 people, 600 seats could be filled there. And I know during COVID it's a very different story, but for WE, one of the grandest arenas, and that travel thing you bring up is quite interesting, considering that here for Suning, back in Hongqiao, the place they normally play if they're not at someone else's arena, as Bin is hypering down. Here comes the next one as Boomerang close to hitting yet again. Mega Gnar about to be complete. And Bin in this side lane having a great old time, assuming using that advantage to push in ever so deep against WE's jungle.
And this is a combination of them benefiting off that fight, but also what we saw start up earlier. Shanks, though,
there's a big shot.
Doesn't do any damage, but it looked cool.
It looked cool, you're right. But WE not willing to follow it up, and there you go. Shockwave's down 55 seconds before Dragon.
It did nothing.
It did nothing. Hey,
but it looked great.
It really did. And
I'm just saying, in a highlight, if you cut it off right there, the imagination can do wonders.
Big Shockwave. Yeah, I know. You're like, wow, what could happen from here? So, look, no damage, but now for WE, still hitting around the same choke. On gets poked out quite a bit. Shanks' Shockwave, I think my question is it going to be up before Dragon spawns? The answer looks to be yes, as it's half off the cooldown already. 25 seconds from the Dragon spawning up as well. Side lane's really in order for Suning. It's something you talked about heavily. Suning have great side lane control, and yet again, the pressure's in as the Dragon's about to come to light.
And that's the thing, right? Because, again, they got a huge gold injection from the last fight, but even when W is opting for those early objectives, we saw Suning opt out of it and say, hey, we're just going to get more gold on the Bin, we're going to get plates onto him, he's farming his Krugs, he's farming the enemy Gromp, and we even saw that in the last fight where he's been starting and slowly getting up these item advantages to where he's a dead man's plate, he already has another winged moon plate to where Breathe is just sitting on his Stride Breaker and a Phage.
Been a really rough time this time around for Breathe as Dragon goes down. Shanks going to trade it for the top lane turret, and so it feels like we were set up for higher expectations of this series, but Suning look like the overall better team. You talked about knowing their composition, knowing their game plan especially, and how they want to run this comp. Again, thank you for correcting me earlier. It's not about scaling here in this game, especially how Suning run this composition now with the Seraphine. And they have been running the fights better. They have been on the same page, where WE, I guess you could argue, target selection, timing, has been something that hasn't been as good as Suning so far.
Definitely hasn't, and that was an area I expected Suning to have an advantage in the series, right, was their mid-game. Because we've seen they've been a brilliant mid-game team. They've done a great job of coordinating around side lanes. I think SofM's read of enemy jungle has been really nice. But I thought WE's early game would be explosive enough, or at least consistent enough, for them to, pick up some advantages and run those home.
As on, that's the Magnet Storm again. He'll die for it. There's the encore. Do you want more? As SofM joins the party. Shockwave great though, but Beishang dies as he goes into the onslaught of shadows. The pony dies. The RSPCA called, and Suning do it all again.
And Suning now just going to be able to push through the base. That timer is only 20 seconds, so they don't want to overforce for any kind of end. They're just going to take the safe route, turn this into a Baron. Health bars are about 50%, but still only Jiumeng up. I don't expect him to look for any shenanigans that he was threatening last game. Now Suning, going to come up on the map. They're not only going to be able to push that side lane advantage even further, but look at items as well. Huanfeng went for the rapid fire cannon, which I think is a great read when it's like, hey, as long as WE's comp doesn't get onto me, that is all that matters. We will win any fight where they can't get onto me. And again, they either need Hecarim to get on the back line, which I think is very hard with your team being able to follow up, or Renekton flash. So great purchase. Seraphine also at full power already, only needed the Moonstone, also as a Staff of Flowing Water. Their siege is going to be insane, and we're going to go into the replay. On finds the engage, goes in a bit too early, gets picked off. But it's going to give room for Breathe to think he can go in. But look at this, missing, and Beishang already chunked out by the time that can start. Great encore coming out from Angel. Huanfeng forced to flash and cleanses as well. Rapid Fire Cannon, though, shows up. He's able to get off all the DPS, and right now it's just a stats difference, Hysterics. They just have too many items. They're just too far ahead, and 2 Infernals on top of it. I mean, WE needs some kind of like cheeky Hail Mary or crazy overstep coming out from Suning.
Because even then, right, that felt like one of the best conditions for WE. You know, Shockwave is great. Even though Beishang goes down, he hits the Onslaught of Shadows with half of the fear range. But Suning still prevail. Huanfeng still prevails. And in this series, Suning are showing up massive. As I feel like for WE, some of the execution going to need some work if we go to this game 3, 2-0 down. WE on their last legs in front of the base. Beishang poking out. And Suning left as a 4 is that Blast Cone. Cheeky as well. And Bin sitting in the bottom side, pushing in against this Renekton.
I mean, W have one play available to them, and again, it's like a disadvantageous play as well, as they need to give up one lane and just all in the other side. Try to find a pick off, and then give themselves some more breathing room to where after they counteract the other push, Suning will then have to back off. But Ragnarok coming out...
Yeah, missing waiting for the engage.
I don't think action should break out.
Oh, no, On's done it again. Attractor Repel, the Encore flies through, and everyone are in from Suning. Huanfeng at full HP. Ladies and gentlemen, you know how this fight's going to go. This is going to match point as soon as it's begun. Beishang yet again going to die at the hands of who knows as Huanfeng burns him down. And Suning just look absolutely on point here today. They destroyed LNG, and they want to do it again against WE.
Just great performance coming out. Jiumeng, though,
Everyone
it
goes
doesn't
golden.
matter. Suning are going to get the win. They're going to pick up another kill. And already on match point again. They were the lower seed. They were coming in, I think, in a lot of people's minds as the underdog into this series. But Suning improving from the regular split. I think they were already ramping up over the season as well. Again, match point, let's remember, if WE lose this series, WE are just out. There's just no more. We are not in the double elimination portion of this playoff bracket yet.
Man, it's been a really great start of the series for Suning. I don't know, in a chamber, you watch this series, you think, Suning are just, you know, such a great team. It doesn't feel like the WE that you know, I was expecting personally coming into this. Doesn't feel like the WE that we thought would be competitive. They're running out of options very early in the game. And we're not getting to see, you know, the backline access, the target selection that you see with a lot of Hecarims, with Shockwave on Orianna. Like, there are many tools on WE, but not as effective, apparently, as Suning's tools, especially in that game.
Again, I really like Suning's read of the series. I love that they were willing to run it back and recognize, hey, again, like, we know how to play out this composition against what WE are doing. It should be harder to execute for WE unless they're able to get more advantages off the early game. Again, I feel like game 1 was good for WE. That amount of advantages in the early game, how they were able to punish Bin, how they were able to utilize their Orianna with her push. It's sad that they weren't able to get a win off that game, but this time around, Suning even read it well, right? We saw Bin playing more respectfully in the top lane. We saw the punish coming out from SofM, and then they just had a lot easier of a time playing out this game.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we saw good Seraphine performance come out from Angel. I think On, once again, having some primed engages. And who's going to kill Huanfeng? Who is going to get on this Jinx?
Because we saw, I mean, that the fight around Red Buff was a great example. It's like Huanfeng will survive whatever the case. And it's great to see from Suning. I know we could just compliment them all day. For WE, then I guess the question is, do you just change things out? Do you just go for a left-wing draft that is completely different to at least kind of try and preserve the series?
I don't necessarily think you need to go for like any kind of like crazy left-wing draft. I think you don't run back what you did this time around. Maybe try to breathe a stronger matchup in the top side. Let's remember that losing team does choose side. WE have consistently opted into blue, and it's like, sure, they actually do have like good laning matchups to where mid has had a winning matchup 2 times in a row, sure, against Seraphine, or he doesn't push the first few waves, but after that he did fine. And then top is a matchup where if you can make it volatile with jungle, Renekton will get pressure. Renekton will be able to easily push in waves, as we saw this game. But I'd like to see WE maybe put more emphasis onto playing through breathe and shutting down Bin like they did in game 1, because that game felt like there was a tangible way to win.
Yeah, it really did. And for WE, running quite sparse here. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, there is no second life, as Lyric said before. A 2-0 start for Suning. on match point here in round 2, ready to go up against top esports. We'll see if WE have anything to say to bring back some kind of reverse sweep.